In our previous videos, you saw me talking about a lot of pistols that looked like this. The red dot is already mounted. Well, if I've been a good enough salesman, then chances are you're looking for a red dot to put on your first pistol. But when it comes out of the box, it's gonna look more like this. No red dot. So how do we take this and put this on top to have a pistol red dot setup? I'm Jimmy, this is New to Guns, and today we're gonna talk about how to mount a red dot on your pistol. This process is not a difficult process for you to take on by yourself at home, but it's one that you want to make sure that you're doing correctly. If we do it correctly, then you're going to have an accurate, repeatable, predictable setup between your red dot and your handgun, and that's essential. Last thing before we jump in, I'm going to be talking specifically to factory optics compatible pistols. That's pistols that come with a series of plates and screws to adapt all kinds of different red dots on the market to their slide. So just be aware, that's going to be an additional step. If you have a custom slide or something like that, you probably won't have as many parts to play with, but that's my setup here with the Smith & Wesson. Let's talk everything you need. Of course, I have the pistol itself. I have the red dot I want to mount on it. I have all of the plates and screws that came with the pistol right in the box. Now, in the case of the Defender CCW red dot that I'm using here, Vortex actually gives you a whole bunch of screws with the red dot that they would prefer you use with this setup. So always err on the side of the optics company's recommendation in this case. If they supply their own screws for you to use with certain firearms, go that route. So that's what I'm using here. These were specified on the bag within the box for the optic that they were for the Smith & Wesson M&P. I have an inch-pounds torque wrench here. This one happens to be the Vortex model. There are other ones on the market.
I suck as a salesman.
The nice thing about the Vortex one though is that it comes in the kit with every bit that you could potentially need for any of our optics and any of our mounts. Also, really important, if you do go and get a different torque wrench, don't get a foot-pounds torque wrench. That's significantly more torque you're gonna be putting on the fasteners than is recommended because all the recommendations in this case are going to be in inch-pounds, a much smaller unit of measure. Last but not least, I have a compound here called Vibratite. Now this is similar in some fashion to like a blue Loctite. I'm gonna put a little dab on the screws in this case just to ensure that those fasteners won't work their way out under recoil over time. It's a little bit of extra insurance. Not always something we recommend with optics mounting, but with pistol optics, it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
First thing I'm gonna do is remove the slide from the firearm. Just makes it a little easier to work on. So pretty standard disassembly process here. This is stuff that you can find in the manual for your firearm if you're into reading manuals, which if it's your first time, you probably should be. But anyways, I've got the slide now separate here, and I'm gonna go to the plates. In the case of the Smith & Wesson, they have 7 plates to choose from. There's a lot of different red dots out there on the market, and a lot of them fit differently on guns. So they gotta have a lot of options in terms of plates. Now I know that with the Defender CCW, I'm going to need the Type 2 plate. I knew that by looking at the manual, and it said that this plate fits the Defender CCW as well as red dots that share its common footprint, bolt pattern, and recoil lug pattern, like, for example, the Shield RMS or RMSC. So that's the one I wanna go with.
All right, let's go.
Like I said before, your friendly neighborhood Vortex includes screws for you to use in this exact application of the Defender CCW and the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. I'm gonna use those. I am gonna keep all of the screws that they included in the box with the gun and the extra plates on hand. Maybe I wanna change something up in the future. Maybe Vortex comes out with a different red dot that has a different footprint or bolt pattern. Or maybe I've got a buddy at the range and he just winds up needing one of the other plates or sets of screws that I have. You never know why. Always keep this stuff on hand though. Depending on your gun, the plate may go on the slide a little differently. Smith & Wesson uses these 2 lugs on top of the slide to orient the plates in the proper direction, front to back. Glock actually uses a set of fasteners to physically mount the plate to the slide, and then you use an additional set of fasteners to mount the optic to the plate. So just depending on what gun you have, do be aware that it may look slightly different. Ultimately though, we're gonna stick a plate between our optic and the gun. From there, you just stick the red dot on. So I'm gonna go and actually kind of move it around a little bit back and forth on top of this plate that I put on top of the slide. once it sinks down into the recoil lugs and into those pockets that are actually recessed in the red dot body, I can tell that the red dot is seated properly in the recoil lug pockets. So now it's going to be time to put the screws in. Keen observers and enthusiasts of thread locking compounds will notice that there's a little bit of dried blue Loctite on these screw threads already. That's just from me mounting this same red dot on the same gun with these screws previously. I'm still gonna put a dab of fresh Vibratite on the threads just to be sure. It's important to mention that I'm not using something like red Loctite or rock set or something that's gonna make this red dot basically a permanent part of the gun. I just want something that's gonna, again, keep the threads from backing their way out under all the recoil that we're gonna be seeing when we're shooting this gun all the time.
I mean, one little move and he'll just start blasting.
I've got the right bit in my inch-pounds torque wrench here, and I've got it set to 12 inch-pounds. Now, all those enthusiasts of thread locking compounds out there will know that because I've put a compound on these threads, I'm gonna get what's called a wet torque. So if I set the inch-pounds torque wrench to 12 inch-pounds, then it's actually gonna cam over at about 15 inch-pounds, which is perfect for this setup. That's what Vortex recommends. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start tightening. I'll get both of these screws down to the point where they're basically touching. I haven't actually gone to cam the inch-pound torque wrench over. You'll know what I'm talking about when I say cam it over here shortly. Once I get down to that point where I can tell that they are touching, I am going to just simply do that. Now that ensures that I have had it cam over at its set 12 inch-pounds. Do that on each screw, and no joke, it's that easy.
That's it. Easy peasy.
That looked easy. It was. How could somebody screw this up? Well, there's a few common mistakes we see people make. One is not using a thread locking compound of some sort on the optic screws, and if applicable to your firearm, the plate screws that screw the plate to the firearm itself. Now, the other one is people not using inch-pounds torque wrenches. See, this is crucial because if you over-torque the screws mounting the red dot to your firearm, then you could run into potential reliability, accuracy, repeatability issues simply because you've over-torqued those screws and put too much stress on the optic. If you under-torque them, well then of course you run the risk of those screws more easily backing out under recoil over time. So a few crucial tools in the process will ensure that you have a great setup with no issues at all. And it's easy. It's easy. It's easy, it's easy, it's easy. Do it yourself. Don't let some other schmuck do it. Hopefully this video showed you that mounting a red dot yourself on your own handgun is easy, not an intimidating process at all. And if you have the right tools on hand, then you're not gonna have any issues with that setup later on. I've got my red dot all mounted up on the slide here. Simply, all I have to do is put the slide back on the frame, and I'm ready to hit the range. All I need to do is get this red dot zeroed to the gun now, and I can get to shooting, training, having fun.
I'm gonna go have some fun.
If you guys have any questions at all about mounting a red dot to your pistol or just the new gun ownership experience in general, shooting, life advice, investment strategies, cryptocurrency, portfolios, you know.
Limited time offer, no purchase necessary. Offer valid at participating locations, void where prohibited.
Just let us know. Hit us up in the comments or over on Instagram at Vortex Edge, and we're always happy to chat with you there. Otherwise, we'll see you guys on the next video of New to Guns.